So out of nowhere, Apple decided to release the Apple Vision Pro at the beginning of February 2024. And because of that, not many people have been able to play with the thing. Now, Apple's human interface guidelines is chock full of revealing information. However, it is often vague and kind of buried. So today, I wanted to walk you through the restrictions, immersive abilities, and foundation of VisionOS. And my aim is to provide you with insights into spatial design in a way that is both easy to comprehend, yet impactful to use. Anyway, so you know the pleat of every YouTuber by now. Like, subscribe, and let's kick it. Now, before we get into the UX weeds, let's talk broadly about how Apple's design fundamentals are different from their competitors. Unlike every other major standalone HMD on the market, the Vision Pro prioritizes a multi-app approach over the traditional app-to-app environment, meaning multiple applications can be open at the same time in the same space. Now, this approach to computing is a lot closer to the desktop experience than the mobile experience, but there are some heavy restrictions on VisionOS that mirror iOS and iPad, but we'll get to those later. And because no one has made a standalone multimodal OS, there are a whole lot of nuanced challenges, trade-offs, and restrictions Apple has had to lay the groundwork for. And that's where VisionOS's foundations really come into play. Now, this video could get really long if I dove into why I believe Apple has chose the decisions that they made. So if you want a video on my hot takes, let me know with a comment down below. Actually, hold on real fast. You're going to hear me say this a lot. So instead of me saying I have thoughts, I'll just create a secret word in its place. And today's secret word is pigmelon.
Ooh, I love pig melons.
Okay, so first and foremost, let's quickly talk about the possible challenges Apple was facing when creating a spatial computing interface. And I'm going to keep this as brief as possible, and these are all just assumptions. So first off, there are very few standards for spatial computing operating systems. There are very few affordances, very few signifiers out there. It's kind of the Wild West. This meant that Apple needed to create a bare bones foundation that could scale over time, which is incredibly difficult. Second, Apple needed to interweave their existing ecosystem brand and voice across all of their consumer products, including the VisionOS. And this helps with both established consistency, brand voice, and ease of use on the Vision Pro. Third, traditional developers and designers really have no clue how to create spatial design applications. And because designing for depth, ergonomics, and field of view is a very nuanced concept for creators, Apple needed to ease them into it as easy as possible. I guess that as painlessly as possible. I don't know. Finally, Apple knows it has no clue how this medium is going to evolve, so they needed to create hard and loose restrictions to help both maintain a consistent experience while evolving the medium. And all of these challenges are insanely difficult to manage, and so they have created a very basic foundation to address them. So have they succeeded? Pigmelon. So now that we have some brief context of all the challenges Apple is facing, let's dive into the meat of VisionOS. So are you ready? Yeah, you're probably like, yeah, fuck yeah, Dan. So the foundation of VisionOS is comprised of two main sections. First, there are the objects and areas in VisionOS, and these are comprised of windows, volumes, and spaces. And broadly speaking, windows, volumes, and spaces dictate how, what, and when content can be displayed, what inputs can be used, and where a user's focus should be. Then there are the levels of immersion. There's mixed, full, and progressive. And let's be super blunt here. Mixed immersion is AR, full immersion is VR, and progressive immersion is somewhere in between. And again, these forms of immersion have strict rules associated with them. Now, Apple, of course, has a desired outcome they want every application to adhere to, and they have tried to dictate to developers how they should talk about their products privately, and I think that's just freaking crazy. But let's just say they want a lot of windows open in AR at basically all times. Okay, so what the hell is a window? Well, a window or a panel is an object in space that houses 2D content. And like the desktop, windows can be resized, closed, open, and nested within each other. Now, these bad boys primarily house flat content like typography, imagery, and other forms of media. And unlike volumes, a window's content can be scaled relative to the user, meaning developers and designers need not sweat calculating how to scale content based on a user's distance. Now, VisionOS simply does this by using an updated unit measurement called points. Now, points have been used in iOS for a really, really long time, but now they're relative to an angle instead of a pixel. And there are really two forms of scaling called fixed and dynamic. Now, before I move on, I can't resist giving my 2 cents on Windows because I think it's incredibly important. While they are cool, in many ways, Windows are simply the skeuomorphism of the spatial era, meaning they are a transitionary medium from 2D to 3D. Now, Windows will always exist, but they will be used less and less as time goes on. Well, at least I hope they will. And while they're cool and everything like that, a lot of people are going to create a lot of basic bitch shit with them that are ergonomically painful. But Windows and panels are important to spatial computing, and they will be the entry point for a lot of products and designers. However, while Windows are the training wheels for a lot of us, they still need to be handled with care. So keep this in mind when you're designing for a user's field of view and ergonomics of their body. So a whole lot of pig melons here. Seriously, like a whole ranch of them. Okay, on to volumes. So volumes are probably one of the most interesting yet restricted objects in VisionOS. Essentially, a volume is a container that can house 3D content. Content cannot go outside of the container. It's just essentially this empty box that can house stuff. And while a volume size can be defined by the developer, the content inside of them can be susceptible to cropping. And unlike Windows, volumes do not have dynamic scaling, so you cannot rely on Apple to do all that hard work for you. So this will force many of you to learn how to design based on meters and dims versus say points, dips, and pixels. And this is a whole another challenge onto itself. So if you want to learn more about how to design 3D content for the human body, let me know with a comment down below. Cool? That was fast. Yeah, let's talk about spaces. Spaces are essentially the areas in which a user can occupy. And there are 2 types of spaces. There's shared spaces and there's full spaces. Now, shared spaces like a computer desktop can have multiple applications, windows, or volumes open at the same time. Now, this space at the moment is primarily built for windows and volumes, and while a shared space can utilize full mix and progressive immersion, the immersive content is designated to what is the equivalent of a wallpaper. And I'm not gonna lie, the moon, lake, and desert immersive wallpapers are sick as fuck, but if you want a custom virtual world to hang out in, that's not really happening here. As for inputs in shared space, they are hyper restricted. You can essentially only use direct inputs like gaze pinch, direct touch, and a magic mouse and keyboard, which in my opinion are incredibly painful inputs to use. Now, a full space is where all the cool kids hang. Essentially, full spaces are the equivalent of a single program being open on a desktop. You could, of course, use volumes and windows here, but you can also create unrestrained content. And again, every form of immersion can be accessed here. However, this time you aren't restricted to a virtual wallpaper. So this is a big, big deal. But maybe the best feature of full spaces is that it's open to any input, meaning any Bluetooth-based controller or input is fair game. So yeah, I'm for sure going to be looking for a virtual desktop app that untethers me from Apple's shared space. I really want my mouse, 6-DoF controller, and I really want to be able to build my virtual worlds that I can occupy. Now, this broad overview just touches the surface of VisionOS, and this stuff can get super deep. And while the Vision Pro may seem boring to some of you, I believe Apple has just laid a solid foundation that we can build upon for years. So if you want to learn more, check out the HIG link down below, or let me know what you want me to make content on. Also, if you're an eager beaver and you want to start experimenting with spatial computing today, check out these tutorials up above. And this is the perfect time to get started with XR design or spatial design or whatever. So check out the XRD Discord. Send me some love. Until next time, everyone, take care and plus minus.